It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
A fine Saturday matinee to you all.
Good morning.
Hello. Andy. In
Hi there.
what?
Yes,
I'm trying to be
because
completely
there's no
That's
reason
good.
for an
That's
Irish
important.
accent because I saw that movie.
This is the big thing, right? This is the big rumble in the jungle that we've been waiting for. This is the most grand use of the word finally that I have ever been enabled to use. Finally, Steve has seen In the Name of the Father, and he's here to report his grand multi-starred review. Steve,
You were using Twitter to instigate internet hate crimes. I'm like,
Yeah,
if you're going to use Twitter, that's what you do is you rile people up with. I'm like, what? Andy and I are adults.
Oh,
we can
God.
agree to disagree on things. He can say, well, I have some quibbles, and I'll say I have some quibbles, and you saw it, and I saw it at this point in my life. And there's movies that Andy saw later in his life where he's like, yeah, if I'd seen it at a different point, I might enjoy it more, and we're fine with that because we're big
Steve,
boys.
you are really throwing a wrench into the mix here of drama. I started on Twitter because there's
Pete's
no other place
decided
to
that
do
this
it.
needs to be a full-on fight.
Yeah, exactly.
He wants us to do a cage match, I think. Is
That Daniel
really
Day-Lewis
what
can't
this
act
comes
his way
down
out
to.
of a paper bag. That accent was so fake. No, I realized I didn't realize how old the movie was. I remembered hearing about it, and I was like, oh, okay. Emma Thompson. I didn't realize that I'm so old that they were doing movies because they were still young in the 90s when they made this thing. And it was in the era of it. I guess it felt like in that time period, there were a lot of movies about the Irish and British. And, I think of The Commitments, the early 90s, of just a lot of movies focusing on that time or the oppression and that culture and all of that. So you don't get that as much anymore. I was like, oh, Bono's singing a song for this? Wow. It was a big film. It's got a great cast. It just is, I think we've come a long way in how we tell stories differently, or I was expecting something different. If you think about, how movies like The Matrix changed action movies, or John Wick. Okay. Any really good action movie with Keanu Reeves, raises the bar for action movies. And I was expecting a procedural on this one because we've got a whole, wrongful imprisonment. So I was expecting more courtroom procedural stuff like that, because I think, directors like David Fincher have done a great job of creating that as sort of a genre of exploring, how we piece together a story. And, Jim Sheridan back in the 90s just had a different approach for that. And it didn't connect with me as much. That's all.
Andy, what do you have to say about that?
Rebuttal. No.
I don't really have
you
anything to
guys
say.
are
I'm
the
just glad he
worst.
watched it. And now it's your turn, Pete. Now it's your turn.
I debated when I tweeted out my, announcement that I saw it. I wondered if I should have, said, okay, Pete, I gave it 3 stars and it lost 1 star for this and it lost 1 star for this. And, as I was watching, bing, there goes the star. I'm spending too much time in prison without really moving the plot forward. Bing, the end was just, way too condensed. And there's your 3 stars. I don't know.
Everything's made better with the sound of falling
Yes.
stars. All right. Well, I'm just really, more than anything else, Steve, I'm just so happy for you because now you're allowed to see other movies.
Yes, I know.
And I feel like the floodgates have opened.
Well, I gotta go back through the archives and what are all the things I said? Oh yeah, I gotta get around to that one now too.
We have not been keeping track.
Well, I feel like you ended up watching most of those before you actually watched In the Name of the Father. So I think your list is actually pretty short.
The reason I was able to watch this was I was traveling for work, and one night I caught the last half of that HBO documentary about Elizabeth Holmes and her whole blood testing company, Theranos.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, I gotta see this thing. Because I knew that they had been involved in Arizona, and I came into maybe it was the last 20 minutes, actually. I said, I got to see this thing. So I activated my free 1-week trial at HBO through Hulu and saw that. And as I was scrolling through, I was like, In the Name of the Father's in here? Well, now I have no excuse, because for a while it was like, oh, it's not available on Netflix or anything. And then it was sitting right there. And I thought, well, I have to. If Andy finds out I had a free trial and the movie was sitting there and I didn't, he would never forgive me. I would be like banned from any Satman conversation. So yeah, it was right there. And I sat down, watched it, and meh. but now I'm at the end of my 1 week trial, and as I've been in there, I'm like, oh man, there's so much good stuff in here that I always, been intending to, like, oh yeah, The Wire. I was supposed to watch all of that show at some point. So they got me. They got me with their free 1 week trial. It's my ad. I'm probably going to keep it for a while to get caught up on a lot of shows that are, HBO, and there's some good movies in there I need to dig into. But now I'm hitting sort of peak saturation, because on Monday my Criterion Channel goes live.
Oh no, Steve!
Well, have you seen the trailer for the Criterion Channel?
I haven't.
I mean, you have to check this thing out. I think I posted it in Discord. It's not just movies. They have like shows, sort of like original programming, interviews with directors, filmmakers. It's not just, like, here's a bunch of movies in our catalog. There's other content that they're putting in there. So there's all kinds of themed events that they do. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know what I'm going to do. Now I got my HBO and I got my Criterion going live. There's far too much. And I've actually was so happy that I've got around to, a couple weeks ago, I watched Detour, which was their, movie of the week before they launched. They were doing this, feature movie. Watch it. But the crazy 1960 Baron Munchausen movie, oh my gosh, guys, it is insane. You can see where Terry Gilliam gets his influence from, who's inspired him. This movie is bonkers. It's amazing what you do when you have like no budget and are really creative. It works so well. It is from Czechoslovakia. So, you've got some subtitles to deal with and some reading, but the visuals on this movie are astounding. It's fully, this is what I would expect from, you've got to create something where you have a sense of you're in a different world, a different reality, and doing it with a low budget, but it works so well. It works so well. It's only like 85 minutes or something like that. It's very short, but such a joy to watch. So much fun.
I feel like I should check that one out just because I do enjoy Terry Gilliam's. Yeah, and it's one of those ones that I feel like they've made. I know we talked about it when we did the show. I mean, there are a good number of Munchausen movies that were made before Gilliam got around to it. And it would be interesting to kind of explore some of those, see what else is out there.
And now I've got to figure out if I'm going to join Criterion Channel. I still haven't made it through all the A24 films over on Canopy, Steve, and you got me into that.
I know that. Come on, we're in a golden era of filmmaking and TV shows. It's crazy. There's way too much content, and there just keeps. Then what are you going to do when Apple launches their whatever TV Plus?
Well, I'm going to join it, Steve. God,
I know you're. Apple is your lifeblood if they've got something. I have to say, when I was scrolling through the news the day that stuff came out, and the first thing that came up was, oh, they're doing News Plus, and I scrolled through and I didn't see anything else. I'm like, that's the big announcement, News Plus. Yay, way to go, guys. That's just rocking my world there.
Right.
I can pay for things that are there. Okay. News. Woohoo. But you're going to do it, Pete. You're going to be part of News Plus, aren't you?
Well, there's a 30-day free trial. Of course, I signed up for that. Yeah. One of the things I like about it is that, it's through family share. So we have all four of us in the family on this thing. And so all of us get access to all these magazines. So my kids have been sitting down and like reading articles in the National Geographic. It's like access to things that we don't normally have subscriptions to. And it's nice to have, I grew up with a subscription to National Geographic. So that was the one, honestly, that I was most excited about. So I've found that really fun to be able to share and send articles back and forth and know that they have access to that stuff. So we'll see. We'll see if over the next couple of weeks they actually start using it as a resource tool for, school. That's my goal. If one of my children will use this as a resource, I will keep it.
Well, there is this great thing called the public library, and they have magazines there that you can read for free.
Wait a minute. Do I have to leave my house?
Oh, wait, sorry. You actually have to interact with people. That's right. I forgot. That's a big barrier.
I got Canopy for the library movies. I've got Libby for the library Kindle books. I don't actually have to go to the only time I go to the library is actually to get some peace and quiet to work. So I didn't know they had books there.
There's a whole Jack Reacher section right there waiting for you.
Yeah, That's right. Hey, anybody seen Shazam?
Andy didn't posted a 4-star review, I think. Yeah.
So
it's a lot of fun.
The review I read this morning was that it was Captain Marvel, but worth watching. Isn't that hateful?
What?
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
I know. In my little notes here, I have a keyboard shortcut where when I type an exclamation point and a question mark back to back, it automatically converts it into an interrobang. And so I wrote Shazam exclamation mark question mark, and it turned it into an interrobang. And I actually think that's how they should have marketed the movie. I'm leaving it. Shazam. Andy, go ahead. What did you think? You liked it?
I did. It was a lot of fun, and the whole family really enjoyed it. It's actually a little darker than I was expecting. Like some of the actual, like the villain stuff, some scarier stuff that my younger son was a little. He closed his eyes and looked away a few times because there was some scary stuff. I was actually kind of surprised in a movie that has essentially kids as the main superhero. But it's definitely worth watching. It's nice to see DC doing something that's just very pleasant, very it's just really enjoyable, and it has a lot of heart. And so I think it's going to be one that between this and Suicide Squad and just the different things that DC is doing as they try to shift away. I mean, Aquaman even really, it's giving a good move for them to get away from some of the darkness that I think was bogging them down for a bit.
I think what I perceive as their success is not trying to have a coherent cinematic universe, because I think tonally it tied them in.
Well, this is part of it.
Tonally, but then I also see DC's got their Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie, and that could be part of this same cinematic universe. I don't know, but it just seems like they're willing to not have a universal tone, whereas Marvel, we've talked about there's different genres, but still there's a consistent feel to the movies, perhaps just in visual style. When I look at Shazam and then I look at Joker looks like a 70s Scorsese, if Taxi Driver was about a clown type of movie, and Shazam looks more bright color. There's some.
I want that on the poster. Yeah. If Taxi Driver was about a clown.
But there's some range there where you can. When I saw Shazam, I'm like, oh, it's like Big, the comic book, superhero movie, because it's
That's exactly.
And whereas Marvel, there's more. We can have those. Like Winter Soldier, it's more of a, spy thriller, but there's still some lightness to it. There's still those comic moments. And I think DC, in allowing for some variation, that they may have found their way out of the box they had sort of put themselves in by allowing a little bit more variety. I did not know Shazam was still part of the same cinematic universe, because how do you reconcile that, goofy fun with,
certainly with Joker.
Yeah, exactly. Or even, which may be a separate universe, but if we say it's part of the same universe as Batman versus Superman, which is like really dark and dismal.
Mm-hmm.
They do. Okay.
That's all I'll say.
Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great, and I am very excited to see it, and if my kids weren't out of town, we would have gone to see it already. It's one of those we've been looking forward to. I love Chuck. He's great, and I want to see it just to celebrate his workout routine.
Yeah.
These guys, man, they're amazing.
Well,
yeah, and he's great in it. Zachary Levi is just he does exactly what Tom Hanks did in Big. I mean, that's a perfect reference point for this movie, is taking that young kid, putting him into a grown-up body, except in this particular case, he has superpowers.
Yeah.
So good. So that's very exciting. Speaking of actually the DC cinematic universe, I had not heard that. I'd heard that Will Smith was out of Gunn's Suicide Squad. I had not heard that Idris Elba was in, and it turns out Idris Elba is in. And originally they were thinking he might play Deadshot, but they're making him a different character. It sounds like there's a lot of turnover. I think only 3 of the original characters are back for this one. We've got Harley Quinn and Jai Courtney as Boomerang, and Viola Davis is back as Amanda Waller. And so, but those are the only 3. And so they're going to put a lot of new faces in the movie, in James Gunn's thing. So that's exciting.
That is exciting. It's like I said, they're willing to have some flexibility. We can have, if we're going to keep, Jared Leto as the Joker, but we've got Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker. I mean, they're really embracing this sort of like, you can have different comic book lines, within your, brand of we've got, and I think that's what's working for them, rather than, we get the variety. And I'm really excited to see what James Gunn does with this. And I love that we can have, a Joker that's, Jared Leto, and we can have a Joaquin Phoenix Joker, and that both feel true to who they are within their specific world. Hopefully we don't have worlds colliding, because I like, being able to pick and choose or have a different experience when I want, the Suicide Squad. That's great. If I want a more, gritty character piece, I'll have that option as well. I'm really looking forward to this new direction for DC.
Well, they're giving us a lot to think about in
plus their TV.
Yeah, right. And they're giving us so much to think about in 2040 when we hit the DC movie minute. The follow-up to
somebody's
our
already
podcast.
doing that, so we can at least check that off our list.
Oh no! What do we have? What do we have in the Marvel corner this week?
It was a good week for Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel broke the 1 billion at the box office, becoming, I think it was the 10th superhero movie to do so, and the 7th of the Marvel films, something like that. It's making a lot of money. It's doing really well for itself, and only 37 movies total have actually hit the 1 billion mark. It's the 38th, and it's also the first female-led superhero movie to reach that 1 billion in global sales. So. The other, can you guys guess what the other 6 Marvel movies that hit the 1 billion mark are?
Avengers.
I feel like we covered this when we were talking about the breakdowns of which ones were the highest.
Because it was like
right.
the Avengers and what was it? It was all the ones where it's the Avengers. So what, Avengers and Endgame, not
right. It's Infinity War, Avengers, Ultron,
Black Panther,
Civil War.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is kind of Avengers, Black Panther, and then Iron Man 3 was kind of the weird anomaly to throw in there.
That's funny.
So Captain Marvel's doing really well, and I think what was the other bit of news that I had? We had a tiny new trailer, I guess, an extra little special look at Endgame, so a little extra footage there, which was fun, and then of course we have the launch date for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. coming May 10th.
They dropped that little teaser too. That looks good. I like that show.
I really need to catch up.
Yeah,
you do. But then you've also got what is it? Well, if you're going to really cover everything Marvel, you got Runaways, and then what was the other one? Cloak and Dagger. That's Marvel, right?
Cloak and Dagger, and
then
well,
and that was a great little bit that Joel dropped over on Discord for us to kind of give us a really a good timeline, kind of a chronological view of how to watch Marvel, like not just the movies, but all the TV properties as well. And you realize, that's going to be Yeah, I'll just need to set aside a decade of my life to really just kind of go through all that.
Yes, it's all good stuff, and I have not started Cloak and Dagger, but I really enjoyed that show last season, and so I'm very excited to catch
I
up
haven't
with
even started, but now I probably have to, or I'm now motivated to, because one of my podcasts, and I think Pete, you listen to the Deconstruction Workers podcast, don't you?
Yes. That was a great
that
episode.
Just dropped. And I looked at it. I was like, oh, Freeform Cloak and Dagger. I'm like, Pete's watching that. He's going to know what this episode's about. I can't even start this because I have no idea what they'll be talking about. Oh, well, at least I've watched In the Name of the Father. Now I can watch other things like Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah. This.
Oh, okay. One last thing, if I can.
Yes, one last thing.
Not Marvel, unless there was still more Marvel talk, but I'm just keeping an eye on the time. One of my favorite movies, one of my top 10 movies of all time, is having its 40th anniversary this year, and that's Alien. But what's really interesting is that I didn't know there was a website called alienuniverse.com where I guess it's sort of a central hub for all alien-related properties. But they've got some shorts they've put together. They've got 6 filmmakers that have done these shorts that are about 10 minutes long. The first 2 of them are now available. Alien Specimen and Alien Containment. And these are just short films that take place sort of in that world of Alien, on different ships in space or whatever. The first 2 are really, really good. And I don't know what the time frame is for if they're releasing them. It looks like they release them every week, I think, but there's 4 more coming. But the first 2 that are out there, oh my gosh, well worth checking out. 10 minutes at lunchtime, just take a break. But I had so much fun with these shorts. It's getting me back into loving that universe, forgetting, all the missteps that have happened along the way. It's great to see some new young filmmakers showing that they really get what makes, Alien such a classic property, really just embracing sort of the tone and feel of these movies. And so I highly recommend checking them out if you are interested in all things Alien.
So they're better than Covenant, basically, is what you're saying.
Yes, or Resurrection, or Alien 3, or Prometheus, or
hey now.
And it's great that they're 10 minutes, and because there's not much room for them to take things and go wrong with them, but there's some. It's just I'm like, it's like a little love letter to Alien, and showing how.
Did you just say these are too short to screw up?
Yes, exactly.
Is that the standard that we have to hold Alien to
if
now?
You get too much time, you can start putting in ridiculous things. When you've only got tight 10 minutes, you gotta just get to the core, and that's have a little alien or face hugger in there someplace, and people freaking out, and some jump scares and creepy tones, and it's so much fun.
That's fantastic. Let's do trailers, gents.
Who's got?
I think I get to go
you
first.
Get the A24, don't you?
Yeah.
The great thing about A24 is they released projects that I just haven't heard of, but still look really interesting. And even if I don't always love them, I find their track record to be a company that's doing a great job of distributing interesting films. The new trailer is for The Last Black Man in San Francisco. It premiered at Sundance just this past January, where it took home the Best Directing prize and the Special Jury Prize for Creative Collaboration. And Joe Talbot is directing it. He wrote it along with Rob Reichert. And it's just it's a film about, I'm not even sure, but it's these young Black kids who are growing up, and they kind of return to this house that was, I guess, their place when they were kids in San Francisco. And it's just kind of reconnecting with their youth and connecting kind of with just all of just the sense of who they are and the sense of who they are in this city and everything. It just, I don't know, it has a tone, it has a real interesting vibe that I found to just be real heartwarming. It's one of these trailers where a lot of it is just text on the screen giving you other people's opinions of the movie and how touching it was, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, I got that tone as I watched this trailer, just the sense of these two characters as they were, excuse me, as they were, just kind of living in this place and trying to figure themselves out. I was really kind of, I found the trailer really affecting, and definitely is something that I am very much looking forward to. What do you guys think?
I think this is a testament to solid trailers. Whatever the movie is about, I'm with you. I couldn't tell you what the movie was about, but the tone of the film is inspiring for me to want to see it and to want to sort of attach to it. It's beautiful. It showcases some interesting faces and a mood, but it doesn't tell me what the movie's about. And I think it's artfully done. Looking at it on IMDb, I haven't heard of Joe Talbot, the writer director. It's the story, a true story. It sounds like of the guy who is in it, Jimmy Fails. And his experience in San Francisco. But with few reviews coming in, it's showing up at 7.5 out of 10 on the IMDb 6-star scale. And, that has a lot of promise. It's lovely.
Yeah, this trailer came out a couple weeks ago, and I think I was considering it for a pick, but may have picked something else. And I said, oh, it looks interesting. But then when Andy picked it, I sort of dug into it again. And yeah, Pete, I was surprised to learn that it's Jimmy Fails starring as Jimmy Fails. And he also wrote the story. And from what I pieced together, he and Joe Talbot have been friends since forever. They're in San Francisco, at least going back as teenagers. And so I'm really intrigued that this isn't just, somebody put together a story. There's some true life connections to this. I don't know who Jimmy Fails is. I'm gonna have to do some Googling to find out who he is. If is this sort of there's something magical about the way this trailer presents the story? I don't know. It's very different from what I was expecting, because it's capturing something innocent and youthful about it, at least in this character, Jimmy, or his actual story. I don't know. But as I've sort of peeled back layers to learn a little bit more about these guys and their connection to the story, I'm much more intrigued by this. I thought it was an interesting, subject matter already, but knowing it's a very personal story, I'm really interested. And yeah, I think the little quotes from critics and viewers, it's compelling me. People were audibly crying in this movie, according to one of them. Is going to be one of these really powerful movies, I'm hoping. Yeah.
I hope so too. Joe Talbot is, his bio, the first line of his bio is that he is a 5th generation San Franciscan. And that has, I guess, gives promise to the movie as a guy who really wants to tell a story about this city that he loves. And what is going on. San Francisco is in crazy cultural turmoil right now. And so, I have no idea if this movie is going to tackle any of that stuff, but I think it has promise to do so.
Yeah, this was these two guys, they had put together actually a Kickstarter campaign and raised their money to make the movie that way. That's how they got this thing off the ground. And they call it a doc fiction hybrid, since it is kind of pulling so much from Fails' life. So yeah, real curious about this one. And I'm very excited to see it. Looks like it's going to be opening June 14th. It'll be a nice little summertime counter programming. Check it out.
Steve, what's yours?
Mine sort of has a connection to Andy's in terms of films that are based on possibly true events. This trailer just dropped, and I remember hearing about JT Leroy years ago as this sort of scandal. This is the story. So there was a writer that had been publishing these books, or there were these really popular books by a writer named JT Leroy, and then no one had seen this author. Then suddenly this sort of mysterious character showed up, claiming to be JT Leroy. But people were like, this looks like a woman dressed as a man. What is going on with this? So now we're several years down the road, because this was like late 90s, early 2000s. So now we actually have a film, which I'm assuming is most factual version of these events we're going to get. But we've got Laura Dern and Kristen Stewart in this story, a film called J.T. Leroy, which is, I guess, going to give us the true facts about writer Laura Albert and her whole, for lack of a better term, scam that she pulled off of writing under a pseudonym, but then I guess took it a step too far by actually having somebody pose as her avatar or alter ego. There were all kinds of issues where I guess they had bought somebody wanted to buy film rights to the first book. And so Laura Albert actually signed over the rights by using the name J.T. Leroy. And then there was a trial about fraud and all of this. So I'm really interested in learning a lot more about this story of a writer that finds success writing under a false name, but takes it perhaps a step too far. This is directed and written by Justin Kelly, who I do not know that well, but it's sitting at a 6.3 on IMDb. And the fact that it's based on Savannah, I'm going to say Knoop, who is the one who was masquerading as J.T. Leroy. So as I said, we've got a version of these events. I would not be surprised if we discover, there's more fabrication, because it's like an onion. There's layers and layers of deception here. But I think with this cast, I'm really looking forward to see where this goes. It's got a release date of April 26th, which I know there's some other movies coming out that weekend that everybody's going to go see. But I think this was going to be straight to video release, which I think is a shame, because I think there's an audience out there to see this, but it gets to be summertime, it gets to be packed, and I don't know that a lot of other people have J.T. Leroy high on their radar as a topic of interest. So this will be one of those straight to video things, but hopefully a solid film is what I'm looking forward to with this one. What do you guys think? J.T. Leroy?
I'm completely unfamiliar with J.T. Leroy or this whole story. So it looked interesting. I liked this sense of it. I thought it was I think it's going to be an interesting character piece. And maybe that's why it's not going to have a huge release, because it feels very much like this story about this lost girl who kind of agrees to go along with this whole scheme, and kind of all the repercussions of that. I feel like the trailer gives a lot away, and so that's, I guess, one frustration I have with the trailer is, we get all the way kind of through the frustrating later resolution of it as things start coming to light, and we have Kristen Stewart saying, you're so manipulative, all this sort of stuff. I'm like, I feel like I kind of get where this is going to be going, but still, it seems like a really interesting story, so it certainly piqued my curiosity.
Yeah, mine too. I think, Andy, that's such a good comparison, because the first thing I thought of, I'd watched this trailer first, and then I watched The Last Black Man in San Francisco, and I thought, wow, this is an exercise in, opposites a little bit. Like, I feel like I get this story, and I get the tone, and I kind of get where it's going, and I don't yet know if it's one that I'm sort of going to want to go pay for. I think they gave away too much for my interest on this kind of a film. And there's something about I don't know, the weird Laura Dern turn that they reveal in the movie that or in the trailer that just feels like that in particular is a thing. It's like revealing the whole monster, in these monster movies that I complain about all the time. Like, come on. That's the point. Like, that's the turn that I want to earn in the movie along with the filmmaker. And they've removed me or my ability to do that in this trailer. So I found that kind of disappointing. But it's a curious story. And, I guess, am I more interested in finding the New Yorker magazine story on this, which undoubtedly exists, or am I interested in actually seeing the movie?
All right, Pete, what's yours?
Oh, you guys. It's a zombie movie. I don't care. I don't care what it is. It's a zombie movie. It's a Jim Jarmusch is doing a zombie movie with Bill Murray and Adam Driver. What? I had not I guess I'd kind of heard about this. The Wikipedia says that Bill Murray actually did out it during Isle of Dogs, and Tilda Swinton too, that they were in this thing. Originally, they'd said that Daniel Craig and Rosie Perez were going to co-star in it. And the only other thing that Bill Murray had said is the title and that he will not be playing a zombie. Well, here is the trailer. The dead don't die. Bill Murray is not a zombie. He is a small town member of the small town sheriff's department with Adam Driver, and they are very calmly and sedately moving through this zombie universe. And, I'm in it. Adam Driver, Selena Gomez, Chloe Sevigny, Austin Butler, Steve Buscemi, Tilda Swinton, whatever. I'll go. I will go in the theater and I will love it. So shut up.
Okay, so are you a big Jim Jarmusch fan?
No, I would not say a big Jim Jarmusch fan. I'm not a big
Have
Jim
you
Jarmusch
seen
fan.
more than
I do like some.
How many of his films have you seen? I'm just curious.
Not all of them. I mean, he's done 29 as director, and I have absolutely not seen all of them. Coffee and Cigarettes,
Okay.
which I liked. Ghost Dog, I
Okay.
liked. Let's see what else. I think actually. Oh, Stranger Than Paradise. I did not like as much. So I'm hot and cold on. On Jim Jarmusch.
He's one of these directors where I'll see the trailers and I'll say, "Oh yeah, that looks interesting," and then I'll never see any. I've seen Night on Earth. That's the only one everything else I'm like, "Oh yeah, that looks really good. I should see this. I should see that." And I'm like, I don't think I've seen anything else of his. But I'm intrigued because he worked with Bill Murray on what was it, Coffee and Cigarettes, and Adam Driver with Patterson, and I have high interest in these, but then it just comes down to, do I want to sit through this? I don't know. There's something about this that looks fun and silly, but I don't know his style and tone as a filmmaker has been anything that's ever drawn me in or compelled me. So I don't know if this is an anomaly or if it's just a trailer that's cut together really well to make it look like one type of film and I'm going to get something else. I'm going to have a whole Coke and root beer situation with this. I don't know. So I'm cautious about this one. I don't know that I'm going to rush out to see this. I love everything that I'm seeing, and maybe he's making a turn for what he's doing with his stories. I don't know, but I just am hesitant on this one. Maybe I'll wait to see some initial reviews on this before making a decision. But everything tells me, yes, I should love this. It's a zombie movie. I love the the things they're playing around with, like, oh look, they're doing the thing. Apparently they're drawn to the beverages they enjoyed previously in their life, whether it's coffee or Chardonnay. So playing, up those, knowing that zombie fans, love their zombie films and you've got to give them what they want. So little, nods to, those, moments in the sort of zombie, dictionary of, films. He clearly knows what what a zombie movie should be doing. I hope this is what he delivers to us.
I really don't like Jim Jarmusch for the most part. I've seen 5 of his movies, and I mean, they're okay, but if any of them are in the top half of my flick chart, it's by accident.
Wow.
He's not somebody I really enjoy. I find his films generally tedious. And so I'm curious that he's doing a zombie movie. I know a lot of his fans enjoy the fact that he did a vampire movie before this, but I'm going to be hard-pressed to watch this one. Although I would say I'd probably watch this before any of his other movies.
Okay.
Because at least it has zombies.
Which is good because it's just guaranteed its position as a trailer pick next year. So whatever. Comes out June 14th this year. All right. Let's do lists.
Let's do it. We're this week we're looking at A Star Is Born from 1976, directed by Frank Pearson with Barbara Streisand and Chris Christopherson. This is the one where his suicide method is a little different than the previous two, and so we went with car crashes. That's what the people want us to talk about. Now, before we get into car crashes, I did find a fantastic website that has the. I'd like to say we should include these on our list, but I feel I should just mention them because I guarantee none of us will. This is the top 5 driver's ed scare films.
Oh my God.
We have Last Date from 1950, Appointment with Disaster from 1956, Signal 30 from 1959, Highways of Agony from 1969, Red Asphalt, which was a series from 1964 to 2006. They were still going. And finally, Death on the Highway, 1971. What they have to say here is arguably the most shocking of the blood and guts safety film genre. Death on the Highway was produced by an organization called the Suicide Club and set a new low in shock value by touching up gory crash photos with red paint. Over the parade of ghastly images showing accident victims cut in half, charred by vehicle fires, and missing their arm, legs, and heads, the narration style that includes such classic lines as, "Consider that possibility that every other driver you meet on the road may be drunk, blind, or just plain stupid," is equally in your face. There you go. Death on the Highway. With that.
That's horrible. And with that, Andy, I think you're ahead in the round here. So.
Okay. Well, I was there. I mean, car crashes. There's just such a wide variety of that. Because of our debate in the show about whether it was an intentional accident or if he just, accidentally died from drunk driving. I'm sure it was the former, but they did leave it ambiguous. I'm purposefully, at least unless one of you steal them, I'm going with purposeful car crashes. So the first film on my list is actually a film that I can't say that I liked, but it's a film that did end up sticking with me because of what it was doing in the context of car crashes. And it is Crash from 1996. A really kind of horrifying David Cronenberg film based on J.G. Ballard's novel about these people who kind of take sexual pleasure from getting into car crashes. And it fit perfectly in David Cronenberg's world of body horror because these accidents that people get and the kind of the repair work they have to do to their bodies afterwards, it really fit well. And it was a really disturbing film, going down a road that I never thought I would be going down, watching people who enjoy getting into car crashes. So that's my first pick, Crash.
Yeah, that came up in conversations in our house, and I don't recall ever watching that movie. My wife claims that we did watch that at one point, and she hates that movie. And she said, I don't know why you guys like that movie so much. I'm like, I don't remember enjoying or liking this movie. She's like, no, I think you and your brother really enjoyed it. I'm like, I have no recollection of this movie at all. I remember the trailer. I remember the topic. I know it was J.G. Ballard and Cronenberg, but that's all I really remember about this.
Sounds like that movie is just ripe for repression.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know that it's on something I want to revisit because clearly it's not anything that stuck with me, and I may have blocked it out. I don't know. Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah, it's disturbing. So I can see why one might block it.
So Pete, you have not seen it?
No, and it's one of those movies. It's one of those weird things. Maybe I did. It's one of those movies. Whenever it's mentioned, I immediately think, "Oh, I saw that," and then you start talking about it, I'm like, that is totally unfamiliar to me. I have no idea what you're talking about. So, yeah, I may have seen it. I don't know. I get it confused with like other movies that are related to sort of automotive work, like Traffic, Crash, Traffic. I get those confused. Totally different.
Blood on the highway.
I get the Blood on the highway, right? The car.
Which one is
anyway,
which?
Right.
Oh, wow.
All right, Steve, what's your first one?
This is one that it's been a while since I've seen it, but it stuck with me for the crash scene as a memorable moment. But also I remember when it came out, reading articles, press stuff, interviews with director and actors. And the one little moment that always stuck with me was during a screening, Jeff Bridges leaned over the director and said, "Hey, man, it's like you put acid in the popcorn, man." And it's an odd movie, 1993, Fearless, which is about survivors of a plane crash. But the car crash moment comes in when Jeff Bridges is helping Rosie Perez, who's just got all this guilt because she had her son on the plane with her and she couldn't hold on to him. And she's got all this guilt because she felt if she could hold on to him, he would still be alive. So what does Jeff Bridges decide to do? He gives her goes in the trunk of his car, gives her a toolbox, puts her in the back of the car and drives straight on into a wall. And the toolbox goes flying out of her arms. And he's telling her, look, this was just a car crash. There was no way you could have held on to your child no matter how hard you tried. And it is just one of these raw emotional moments in this really unusual film. It's like I said, I haven't seen it in a long time, but that is a moment when I think of car crashes, just a really unique type of car crash in that film.
I'm embarrassed that wasn't on my list because it is an intentional car crash, and that is it holds a very just special place in my heart because of the way that it hit me. It was just, I found it such a profound film, really, really amazing, powerful, touching. So I'm so glad that it was included here.
Yeah, actually, as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, I'll bet that's a steal from Andy. He is locked up on that movie.
Just embarrassed that it's not.
Okay. Totally. I like to think that I had a consistent theme like you, Andy, that I really tried to do the intentional car crashes. And so 2 of the 3 that I've picked are intentional, and 1 is just one that I like. The first one is it's one of those that stuck with me, not because of its of necessarily of the power of the crash in the movie, but the power of the gore and the way that the violence is illustrated on film in this particular car crash. It's 2007's Death Proof. It is a Quentin Tarantino film in which Kurt Russell turns off the lights on a dark highway, and at the very last minute, he floors it head on into a car of 4 girls. And the way it's so gross, the way that they show, like, he keeps cutting back to the crash throughout this, like the last 15 seconds of this particular accident, to show what happens to each of the 4 girls independently in the car as their arms or legs are being sliced off, as their faces are getting driven over by Russell's car. I mean, it's just horrifying. But honestly, if you separate yourself from the violence and just the repetition of the slow motion, it is an artful way to demonstrate what is going on in this particular action. I've always found that, like, that one sticks with me more than well, I would say many others, except for the 2 that I'm going to talk about next. Death Proof 2007.
Well, that one was a steal for all of the reasons that
you stole from both of us.
For all the reasons you
mentioned. Double steal, Pete?
Really?
Double steal. Yeah. Double steal.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the reasons you mentioned were exactly the reasons that I had on my list. It's like it's probably my least favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, but it was. There are moments in it that show his strength as a filmmaker, and that is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, I feel like I want to hang it up, and I'm done. Double steal. All right, Andy, number 2.
All right, number 2, I'm going to go with a movie that I think is okay in the context of Tom Cruise's career. It's an interesting film that is a remake of Alejandro Amenabar's Open Your Eyes, Abre los Ojos. And it's not the greatest of films, but it has some really interesting things. And it has, I think, one of the most fascinating and horrifying car crashes, because Tom Cruise is picked up by Cameron Diaz, this girl that he had slept with. And she's clearly mentally unstable. And what you realize in this scene is that she's driving like a maniac and he has no control. And it's terrifying because she drives them off a bridge and crashes into a kind of an overpass, and she crashes on the street below. It's really terrifying the when you realize that, you know, you are putting your life in somebody else's hands when you're behind the wheel, or when they're behind the wheel. And it was I think one of the most effective moments in the film. Just really powerful stuff. So that's Vanilla Sky, Cameron Crowe's film from 2001 with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz in the car.
That's a steal.
Steve,
sounds
was
like
that a
steal.
steal?
Because actually,
Double steal.
that is actually one of the only Cameron Crowe movie I really, really, really enjoy. And it's because perhaps he didn't write it. And I think there was some distance. He was telling someone else's story, not losing objectivity and telling a story he wrote. I don't have as many problems with this film as Andy does. It's one of maybe it's a guilty pleasure for us in this household, but yeah, the realism in that car crash, because it just goes off the bridge, hits the wall, and it's not like we have explosions. It's just, and I think even the sound, there's not any, I don't know, the score is playing. It's just the sound of a car hitting a wall. And it's just sound, really right in your face it has a great sense of realism if you drove a car off, that's what's going to happen. There's nothing to overly dramatize that moment, which makes it hit you a lot harder.
Exactly. That's what makes it work so well. Is
the way he lingers on the car for so long after it hits. It's just terrible. So 2 double steals down, and I have started keeping score in the show notes. I am putting a single star next to the movie for the first person who gets a steal, and the little emoji for double star if it's been stolen twice. So now we can keep score and don't have to worry about coming up with all the alternatives. That was my number 1 pick for today. That's my favorite one.
Okay.
So, all right, Steve, what's your number 2?
You don't have any backups, huh?
Well, I have backups, but that doesn't do any good for scorekeeping, Andy. I want to keep score.
Yeah.
You got to come up with a third one. You have to
I got backups. I got backups.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So then I guess we go to, it's a crash. There's a vehicle involved, but it's a little bit different from everything else that has been stolen from my list. But, in a little small town, Adam and Barbara are out running errands. And as they're on their way back home, a little dog just, walks in front of their car, and they veer and are hanging off the edge of a bridge. And there's a little dog standing on a little beam. And as he jumps off, it releases the car, and good old Adam and Barbara are dropped into the water. And when they come back to their house, they find things are weird because this is Beetlejuice and Tim Burton. It's the most ridiculous car crash ever.
Well, it's a great one. I love that. I need to show that movie to the kids. That's a fun movie.
I've tried. It's funny I tried and they were too young because it presents as scarier than it is. So I need to try that again too. Easy enough. My number 2, how do you do this without a 1970s Roy Scheider car chase? I don't know how you do it. And this one, I want to talk about Philip D'Antoni's film, The 7-Ups. The first, 15 minutes of this movie is this fantastic car chase where Scheider is chasing bad guys. And the thing that sticks with me is this is not an intentional car chase, but it might as well have been, because anybody who intentionally gets in a car chase like this almost is begging to have it end the way it does. And in this case, Scheider doesn't see that he's about to slam into the back of a semi-tractor trailer, and he ducks at the very last second and just peels off the top of the car as he slams into it. And it gives me the same kind of feeling that we get from the Vanilla Sky one. Like, it's done in such a way where time stops. And I've seen it now, 15 times this morning. I've watched it over and over again. And it gives me that same sort of take your breath away kind of feeling as time stops when the car comes to a stop too. 7-Ups, 1973.
Great movie, great car chase, and a great car crash.
I'll have to watch that now that I have freedom in my list to watch other movies.
Man, this is a brave new world. Steve Sarvento.
I know. Roy Scheider in the 70s. There's a lot that I need to get back to cover there. Yeah. Andy?
All right. Well, for my final pick then, I'm going with it's one of Pete's favorite movies. And technically, I guess I would say technically you don't see the car crash in the film because the film ends on a freeze frame, but the car is about to crash, and it is Thelma and Louise. Pete loves this movie so much. his love for this movie is so great that he doesn't want to talk about it on the show because it would just be an hour of him effusing his love. So I really love Thelma and Louise, it's a great movie, and I love that last shot. It's a great one, and it's actually really tragic to bring up. Weirdly, this week after somebody falling off the side of the Grand Canyon once a week, the last 3 weeks, what is going on up at the Grand Canyon that these idiots are kind of getting too close to the edge, but. Anyway, that's my final pick, Thelma and Louise.
That's a classic.
Pete, do you want to talk about your
that
love?
That movie would only be better if they would have found some way to work in a sequence in which a main character took a crap on somebody's suit, like Tony Manero. Like that's the kind of feeling I get when I watch Thelma and Louise.
Oh, good Lord.
I kid. It's not that bad.
All right, you two. Rumble. Cage match on Thelma and Louise. Let's go.
All right, Steve.
Okay.
What's your second one?
You guys...
Your first one.
Took everything. Also, I won't say I'm left with. This was I had set this aside because I thought, well, I won't include this because it's like the epitome of car crashes. When I think car crashes, and I've mentioned this movie before, and it has a very fond place in my heart because it's set in the city that I grew up near, and it's just a classic. And when you have car crash, you have one or two cars, colliding with each other, but it's an entirely different thing when you have a mountain of police cars piled up in the Blues Brothers. That is the way to do a car crash. There's also the police car launched and embedded in the side of the semi truck. So there's all kinds of craziness going on with cars. I know I mentioned it a few weeks ago when we were doing things with things in the mall, and we had the whole car chase through the mall. But for me, when you mention car movies, Blues Brothers is always my go-to.
I knew you were going to put that.
Yep.
I knew you would say, I don't care if I talk about this every week and put it on my list every week. It's going to be mentioned. I just knew it.
Do you know what's funny? As I was preparing the show notes for this week, I actually put the Blues Brothers in his number one spot. I knew it that hard.
Like a book, Steve, like a book.
My number one was Vanilla Sky, but my backup prime is a movie that we've already sort of mentioned, I think, in this conversation as we were talking about DC movies. That is The Dark Knight. I'm telling you, when the Joker orchestrates the flipping of the semi in the middle of the quiet downtown Gotham street, that was one of those breathtaking practical effects that just it just shook me. I felt like that was it was just amazingly cool way to orchestrate that particular sequence. Everything worked. The music worked. Heath Ledger was fantastic. All of the the flipping and the Batman's bike, and I mean the whole thing just worked for me. So that would be my backup number one pick.
Nothing wrong with that one.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that one.
That's it. That's a good list, gents.
Well, so we have coming up now our final episode of A Star Is Born with the 2018 version. So what should we talk about? What's different with this one that we could throw in there?
Bradley Cooper pee in his pants.
Pants wetting?
Wetting.
Are there that many films where somebody wetting their pants?
I don't know.
But I can't wait to research it. That's what you just heard Steve's subtext as. There's nothing I'd rather research.
I don't know. Because I'm trying to think what's different. People pee in their pants. I don't know.
I was thinking about this as I was watching some of the special features for this movie, and it was one of those where, they were talking about just the lengths that Bradley Cooper went to learn how to play the guitar and sing. And I thought maybe that's an idea for a theme for us where actors learn to play their instruments or something like that. I mean, there are a number of movies where especially lately, where we've seen that happen.
Actors playing
Is it actors
instruments?
playing instruments, or
Well,
is it
not just learning, but actors really playing their instruments. Like that's like learning to play who aren't
musicians?
piano
Right.
players learning to play the
Okay.
piano. Right.
Actors really playing their
Yes.
instruments. Yeah, I'm fine
Yes,
with that.
really, but italicize that, please. I
No,
think that
all
might be-
caps. I'm going to
All
all
caps.
caps.
Good,
it.
good. All caps is better. That's
Yeah.
even better.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. This one we have. This is going to be the first one where we actually have family relations with our male lead. It's his brother as opposed to just his manager or the studio head. Is there something we can do with kind of working with your siblings or something like that?
Like a family business type of thing?
Family business.
Okay.
I like that.
Family business. Okay,
Well,
that's
that's an
two.
easy 3. No, that was. Then we have. You were joking about pants wedding. Oh,
We're not putting pants wedding on here.
I see. I didn't. Okay,
No.
that's fine.
No,
I mean,
seriously.
whatever.
No.
Pete, you can
Fine.
bring your pants wedding list next week regardless.
It's fine, Dad.
I can't wait to hear it.
Great. We're gonna get once this gets posted, Discord's gonna be covered with pants wedding.
Right.
That'll be the thing.
Well, and everybody is now going to. Nobody's going to vote. They're all going to do their own little.
That's right.
Fill in.
Pants wedding scenes on YouTube.
Yeah,
Andy, whatever happens, you've lost.
that's true. That's true.
Are there others that didn't make the cut that we want to throw back in the mix? Like,
Well, I will tell you. Let's see. We have relationship
Yeah.
destruction, movies about rock stars that aren't biopics. We had self-destruction. We had vomiting. I don't remember if there's vomiting in the new one.
No.
And then we had coming to Hollywood to become a star. Don't really have that. And then we just have the generic alcoholism.
is there vomiting? Because vomiting and pants wedding, that would be
God, if we could have vomiting and pants wedding on the same
bodily
set of
fluids.
lists, yeah.
Bodily fluids.
Bodily fluids.
Oh my God. We
We
can do
No.
bodily fluids. That at least gives you more variety than just pants wedding.
Well, that covers the alcoholism too, doesn't it?
That's not quite a bodily fluid.
Depends how much you're drinking.
Oh.
I guess alcoholism is missed by one several weeks ago. That's the closest. I want to give the fans, that
we can try
Yeah.
that. Let's try alcoholism.
there.
And
You know what else we could do, which I think would be it gives us actually a lot of options, but it potentially requires a lot more research. Is movies with Academy Award nominated songs.
okay,
Oh, yeah.
that's big.
Okay.
It's totally something we haven't really talked
Yeah.
about, but
No, you're right.
other than in the
Right.
shows where we look at some of these movies, like why is this Banana song nominated?
Yeah.
No, that's
That's a great one. That's a great
Okay.
one, Andy. Put that
Okay.
down there. You have outdone your pants wedding suggestion. You've raised the bar.
Okay, so our choices are actors really playing their instruments, family business, and movies with Oscar nominated songs.
Love
all
it.
right.
All right.
All right. That was
Well, the
good.
poll
Mission
is up.
accomplished.
All right.
Yes, indeed it is.
Well done. Hey, beefy
Yeah.
show. Thanks, guys. Thank you,
Yes.
everybody, for downloading and listening to this show. Members and patrons, thank you for hanging with us this fine Saturday matinee. We got to go buy more tickets for Avengers Endgame. I'm out of here. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Hondo.